Welcome to Soul Food. How are you all doing out there? All right. So those of you up front know why we're here. We're going to have a discussion on shamanism this afternoon, and we've invited Seb Barnett from Green Stag Spirit Work to present that. And I'm going to get out of the way pretty quick. The one thing I wanted to mention was we're thinking about doing this on a monthly basis. So if you enjoy what you're hearing, please do give us that feedback, because we'd like to, we'd really like to present this series for you. So with that, let's welcome Seb.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Seb. I am the owner of Green Stag Spirit Work. I teach classes on shamanism, and I do healing work right here in King County. So it's nice to be local, nice to be a place that feels like home. Today, I'm going to have a talk about what is shamanism, and is it still applicable, and how does it apply in a modern day and age? So it's going to be exciting for me, and you have to forgive me if sometimes I get super excited and I ramble on a little bit, because I'm very passionate about shamanism. I've been practicing shamanism for over 10 years and doing a lot of personal research, and just really psyched to be up here today. So as far as what is shamanism, let's start out with something really basic. Let's talk about, where did the term come from? The term shaman is originally from the Evenetki people in Siberia. There's many tribes in Siberia. Some of them are no longer around. Some people got wiped out. And there are also a lot of people in Siberia that we're still using their terminology, and they're still practicing shamanism, which is excellent. But we originally got the word shaman from the Evenetki people in Siberia. But cultures all around the world, they all have their own names and terminology for these. I'm going to use some less conventional language around this. But they're magician healers. And that's really what the shamans are. They're magician healers. And I know that magic is kind of a strong word for a lot of people, but it's really very applicable. I'll explain a little bit more on that later. So the Russians went into Siberia and they found this terminology, shaman, and they started using it as shamanism to describe the spiritual practice of hunter-gatherer tribes that they were seeing. And the more anthropologists went out into the world, the more they saw the similarities between these different tribal spiritual practices. The word shaman is not male or female. It's not gender specific. The Russians, they decided that it was really important to know the gender of the spiritual practitioner, so they said, well, we'll call them shaman ka if they're female, and shaman if they're male. And you hear some people say shawoman is kind of a strange bastardization of the word. So the word shamanism is created from the word shaman, from the Evenetki people, and it's the spiritual practice of hunter-gatherer tribes. That's a really important phrase to me, because originally everyone came, in your heritage, in your ancestry, everyone came from hunter-gatherer tribes. In my background, in my personal background, which is mostly English and Irish, at one point in time, my ancestors were hunter-gatherer tribes also, and they were out in the world practicing shamanism. And people all over the world, in all these different races and traditions and places, they all practice shamanism, which is excellent. That means that everybody has shamanism as a spiritual practice in their own ancestry and in their own heritage. That's really exciting to me. It's something that belongs to everybody. Also, another slight twist that we have in the modern day and age is that we think that shamanism is what shamans practice, and that's not true. Shamanism is what every member in a tribe practiced. It's kind of like saying that only Catholic priests are practicing Catholicism, when actually everybody in the church is practicing Catholicism. So, everyone in the tribe was practicing shamanism. And in many tribes today, they still are. So, with shamanism, we can break it down to 3 core concepts. And these concepts are really the pillars or the keystones of what this practice is. And the first one is animism, that everything has a spirit. This might be easier to wrap our heads around on a grander scale when it comes to everybody has a spirit. That's easy to take in. Animals, they all have a spirit. That's fairly easy to take in. Plants, they all have spirits. That starts to get a little less conventional for us these modern days and time. And then we start getting into like places. Places all have spirits. And forests, they all have spirits. The very timbers that the place is built out of has a spirit, and these all come together to build the spirit of a place. And then we also have free-roaming spirits that don't have a physical form that they live in. And let me see. My thoughts just derailed entirely. Oh, I consider myself an animism to a fault. So I think that even a stick or a fork or a chair has a spirit that I can talk to. And since everything has a spirit, all of those spirits can be communicated with. But there's a good chance that all the stick will have to say is, I'm a stick! And that's the entirety of its language. And the entirety of its knowledge is, I'm a stick! So, even though we can talk to everything, not everything has these loads of archaic knowledge that we're seeking. Sometimes it's, I'm a stick. So animism, everything has a spirit and can be spoken to or interacted with. Another concept of shamanism is there are different layers of reality. And different traditions say that there are different amounts of layers and that these layers are different, but they all have one in common, and that's the spirit world, or what we're going to refer to as the spirit world. So the spirit world is a place that everything that exists in our physical reality exists in the spirit world. Everything that has existed in our physical reality exists in the spirit world. Everything that will exist in our physical reality exists in the spirit world. And everything that has ever been thought of exists there. And a lot of things that we haven't thought of or cannot conceive is also there. So you have the physical world, or the physical universe, which is, that in itself is beyond my own ability to conceive. But let's say it's like the size of a quarter. That would make the spirit world like the size of this entire building. Like it just, there's no way of mapping or documenting it. But that's one of the other concepts of shamanism, is that there's layers of reality, and that everything that exists in reality exists in those layers also. The third part of shamanism that's really consistent, is that we can go to these layers of reality through altered states. So a lot of times when I say altered states and I'm talking about shamanism, people are like, woohoo, substances. And we're going to call them by their technical term, with is ethnogens. Ethnogens are any substance used for a spiritual experience. They're traditionally plants or occasionally parts of animals or minerals. But more often than not, they're plants or fungus. However, that's one of the misconceptions of shamanism, is that, woohoo, in order to go to the spirit world, we have to have a substance. Actually, the best and most consistent altered state, and the one that's used the most consistently all over the world, is meditation. Meditation is the easiest one for us to be able to adapt to bring into our lives, and also to apply to our everyday life. Imagine that you go someplace and you're like, wow, it feels like there's a spirit here that's really trying to talk to me. Too bad I don't have that substance I usually use. As opposed to saying, cool, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to go talk to that spirit. This is going to be great. So I think that meditation is hands down the best form of an altered state. And it's the most reliable, it's the most consistent, and it's also the best way of being able to listen to these spirits who are always talking and always have a lot to say. It's just we have to learn how to listen. A lot of times, too, the idea is that we use altered states to go into the spirit world, not just to talk to spirits while we're in the physical plane, but we go into the spirit world. I love the term going into the spirit world because it implies that we're not already there. And the truth is that everything in physical reality is already in the spirit world. So that means that we are already in the spirit world. We simply have to draw our attention to that plane of existence. It's not a matter of like going there. There's nowhere to go. You're already there. So I love that idea of going to the spirit world when we're already there and we're already impacting everything there, or a lot of things there, and having ourselves a grand old time in the spirit world. We just don't know it. Or not everyone knows it. That's a better way of putting it. So that's our 3 core concepts. And I'm going to explain to you guys, too, why am I using the term magician healers. And why on earth am I throwing the word magic around? Magic, the dictionary definition is something really strange, like a sleight of hand tricks, things like that. What's fascinating, though, is sleight of hand tricks are based in shamanism. Originally, sleight of hand tricks were used in hunter-gatherer tribes by the shaman to help the tribe members, and are still used, I need to stop putting that in past tense, are still used to help the tribe members really intensely believe, and it has a lot of theatrics involved in many traditions. So sleight of hand, spitting fire, all sorts of things that we think of as more like carnival tricks these days were actually invented by shamans to help their tribe members have a really intense and awesome spiritual experience. I think that's really awesome. And even if it's, some people consider it to be trickery. But I can't believe that all the people in the tribe weren't at some time being like, yeah, dude, we know it's a trick. Come on. Where do you think we're living? We live with this guy, right? There's no way that they were so out of it that they didn't realize, dude, of course, he's got a whole bunch of alcohol in his mouth and he spits it at the fire and it looks like he's breathing fire. So, sometimes we really underestimate people in these different cultures and it really shocks me. There's no way that they didn't know things like that. But so that form of magic, the magic trick, is from shamanism, but also from shamanism is the origin of magic itself as a practical practice, which magic can be defined as using willpower to change reality. You could also call this perception and perspective. Like if you have a perspective of reality, you are going to change the way that you act with the world, and the world is going to change how it interacts with you based on your perception and how you're acting. So, with magic, we simply do that more consciously. And with shamanism, they are doing magic by changing reality by interacting with spirits, which they are doing through altered states, which is a form of putting their willpower to work. If there's any place where our willpower gets a good exercise, it's meditation. If any of you guys have done meditation on a regular basis, that is where your willpower is at work. It's really good exercise. So that's why I refer to shamanism as being a spiritual and a magical practice, because we're changing reality when we practice shamanism. So also from shamanism, all these hunter-gatherer tribes, they practice these three core beliefs. And then also they had all these other beliefs and all these other systems, taboos, specific spirits, deities that they worked with. And that's where there comes a difference between all these different cultures. We just talked about the three things that are in common with all these different cultures that we have recorded information about. There's so many that we don't have recorded information about. But what's not in common is all these other different taboos and traditions. Like even one little thing is I was researching what different shamans should eat. In different countries, they say totally different things. In some countries, they're like, shamans should never eat spicy food. They already have too much internal fire. There's no way that they need any more internal fire. And in other countries, they say shamans should eat all the spicy food that they possibly can to boost up their internal fire. So all these different cultures have very different perspectives. There are some core concepts, but when you get into different traditions and different tribes, that's when you get into different belief systems. And one of the things I also love about shamanism is that from shamanism, since it was the spiritual practice of hunter-gatherer tribes, those hunter-gatherer tribes, they settled down, they got agricultural, and from there, they developed religions. But that means that all these different religions are based in shamanism, which is really awesome and really powerful and really exciting to me. Because with all these different religions, and you can see this all over the world, is they integrate really well with shamanism. All these different belief systems, they integrate really well. There's people in Tibet, and there's people in Mongolia, and they're practicing Buddhism and Catholicism and shamanism all at the same time. They're like, yes, I'm going to go to the spirit world, and I'm going to talk to the Virgin Mary. And or they're going to go to the spirit world, and they're going to talk to one of the Buddhas. And this is excellent and really awesome, and it's also really exciting for me because with this really basic practice, I've had many people from many different walks of life, And many different traditions and belief systems come through my shamanism classes. It's really exciting because people all apply these to their lives in different ways. And sometimes they integrate their current belief system, and sometimes they mix things up and they change around what kind of belief system they want to carry with them. Our belief system should be things that work. If your belief system doesn't work, find a new one. Find something that works. It's a belief. It's not set in stone. It's not science. It's a belief. So, belief systems should be something that works for each one of us personally. So I talked a lot about, like, how is shamanism practiced? Where does it come from? How does it integrate with other ideas? But haven't really talked about how do we use shamanism now? We're not, like, going out on a regular basis saying, need to hunt some game. Need to make sure that I have enough fur, food, vegetable matter, and all that good stuff to make it through the winter. I need to find the perfect tree spirit to tell me where to get skis. Things like that are not what we're doing anymore. So for some people, it can be quite a jump of, yeah, shamanism was awesome. It's practiced by hunter-gatherer tribes. But how do I do it now? So that's where things get really exciting, because there's really not a whole lot of difference between us right now and our human needs and when our ancestors were living in hunter-gatherer tribes, or people who are currently living in hunter-gatherer tribes. We have the same basic needs. We're human beings. And I believe one of those needs is to be in contact with the spirits around us in a good way with good boundaries. Spiritual boundaries, very important, very important. So as an animist to a fault, that means that I do things like use shamanism to talk to my car. When my car might be having problems overheating or something like that, I call all the spirits I possibly can to help cool down the car. And also I talk to the car to help me be aware of when is that cutoff point. Things like that. Really practical stuff. I like very practical applications of my spiritual process. If it's not practical, it's fun to read about, but why would I do it? Another thing, too, is I love gardening. I really love gardening. I am a plant nerd to the highest degree. And to be able to talk to plants about what they need. Do they need more nitrogen? Do they need more water? Do they need less water? That's really important to me, to have that deep spiritual connection just with my house plants. That's very personal and special to me. And also to be able to grow a garden that works very well. Although I'm still mastering the technique of talking to the deer and telling them not to eat my garden. That one we're still working on. I don't think they care what I say. They're like, you can talk all you want. There's food right here. You might as well have just left out a plate of cookies with a 4-year-old. So that doesn't work out so well. But I'm working on it. Maybe we can make some agreements. Things like that. And also, there's so many times when people are speaking to spirits or being impacted by spirits and they don't know it. Or they have some idea of what's going on and they're like, oh my God, what do I do with this information? They're all talking to me and there's 5 of them at a time and they won't be quiet. So shamanism gives us techniques to be able to talk to spirits in a reasonable way, as opposed to like having a crowded room of 3rd graders being like, oh, talk to me, all at the same time. We finally get to define boundaries enough and get a system down where we can sit down and talk to each spirit at a time and be like, hey, it's nice to meet you. I hear that we're living in the same house together. Hi, you live in my car. Hello, you were the raccoon in my attic. I really wish you would move out. This is not going to work well for either one of us in the long run. You can have conversations like that and work out agreements with the spirits around you, and also work out agreements with your own spirit. Because when we sit down and we talk to our own spirit, sometimes we get a little lost in our projections of who we are, and we define ourselves based on what we're doing out in the world as opposed to what we want to be doing or what we need to be doing. And our spirit can help us define and narrow those things down. And there might be times, too, where the spirit is fractured. It's in a lot of different places at once. And through shamanism, we can help bring those pieces together again so we can speak with a unified voice and not be drawn off in too many different directions by our own fractured spirit. So it's also an incredibly deep and powerful healing process, along with being a very powerful and awesome magical tradition and spiritual tradition. I think I have spoken too quickly. But it's okay. I can ramble on about shamanism forever. Another thing we see a lot of times in shamanism is, I haven't seen enough of this I do a lot of research of reading anthropological documents. There's a lot of stuff about New Age shamanism, people recreating shamanism so it could work in a modern day context, which is excellent. I'm really passionate and excited about what people used to do or what they're doing in hunter-gatherer tribes today. So I read a lot of anthropological documents, and one of the things I don't see consistently, but I see fairly consistently, is that there's also usually a belief that goes along saying that energy is in everything and it can be projected or taken in to change reality. It's another level of magic where we're either projecting energy or absorbing energy. And it's really interesting dialogue, because some people are like, oh, I don't want to be projecting energy all the time, and I don't want to be absorbing energy from other people or other things. It's like eating and shedding skin cells. You're going to do it. If you shut off those energetic processes, it's really not good for you. It's not natural. We are organic creatures, and we are made to absorb and release. Absorb and release. Eat and poop. That's basically what we're doing on a regular basis with energy, unless we're holding on to a lot of it, which then you have a whole nother process with shamanism of learning to let go of energy, to feel it and be like, oh, that's excellent. That's not mine. I don't need to do anything with that because it's not me. It's not my thing. That's awesome. It's kind of like tasting something and being like, that tastes really, really interesting. I don't think I like that flavor. That's okay. I don't need to do anything with that. I don't need to eat any more of it. So we also learn a context for spiritual boundaries, energetic boundaries, and it's also really exciting that we can develop all sorts of techniques through energy work, through meditation and altered states, where we have a regular practice of taking things in, letting them go, speaking with spirits, having impact on spirits, having them have an impact on us, which they're already doing that. That's the fun part. They're already having an impact on your life. You already have spirits in your life, and they're already impacting you. At least in my own belief system. So, in shamanism, we can work with these ideas and concepts to live a more energetically peaceful life, and a life that works really well with everything. Everything around us. Our own spirits, the spirits around us, the spirit world itself. And hopefully in the long run, we make the world a better place. So like I said, my name is Seb. I teach shamanism. I do healing work. I have some information about the teaching and healing work, and you guys can also come track me down if you got any questions. I'm not going to do any question and answer up on the stage, but I'm excited to talk to you all, and I'm excited to meet new people today. So thank you very much for coming, and I really appreciate that you all have been out here. Thank you.